The morning shift at Cornerstone Cafe in Brooklyn always smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. But for 28-year-old Maya Chen, it smelled like rent money. She wiped down table 7 for the third time, her daughter's small hand tucked safely in hers, as 6-year-old Lily colored quietly in the back booth that had become their unofficial daycare. "Remember, baby, stay in your seat and don't bother the customers," Maya whispered, smoothing Lily's dark hair before returning to the counter where the lunch rush was already building despite it being barely 11 in the morning. Her bank account showed $47.23 until Friday's paycheck. The eviction notice folded in her apron pocket gave her until the end of the month. 23 days to come up with $1,800 she didn't have and couldn't borrow. Not after her ex-husband had destroyed her credit before disappearing to God knows where. "2 cappuccinos, 1 black coffee, and a cortado," barked Tommy, the perpetually stressed manager who'd reluctantly allowed Maya to bring Lily to work after her babysitter quit without notice. Maya worked the espresso machine with practiced efficiency, steam hissing as she frothed milk to the perfect microfoam consistency. Through the service window, she could see Lily watching the morning crowd with those unnervingly observant eyes that sometimes made Maya wonder what went on in her daughter's brilliant little mind. The strange thing started 3 months ago. Lily had suddenly begun understanding their elderly neighbor Mrs. Kowalski's Polish conversations, then the bodega owner's rapid-fire Spanish, then the Mandarin that Maya's own mother spoke when she called from California. At first, Maya thought her daughter was just picking up phrases, the way children do. But it was more than that. Lily understood everything, perfectly, after hearing just a few sentences in any language. The pediatrician had no explanation. The child psychologist they'd seen, one expensive session Maya was still paying off, had called it exceptional linguistic aptitude and suggested expensive testing Maya couldn't afford. So Maya had simply accepted it as another peculiarity in a life already full of impossible challenges. The cafe door chimed, and Maya glanced up from the espresso machine to see a man who didn't belong in their working-class Brooklyn neighborhood. His charcoal suit probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and controlled intensity. 2 similarly dressed men flanked him, their eyes constantly scanning the small cafe with professional wariness that made Maya's skin prickle. Every customer in Cornerstone Cafe seemed to sense it too, conversations dropping to whispers as the 3 men took a corner table with clear sightlines to both entrances. Maya had worked enough shifts to recognize danger when it walked through the door, even when it wore expensive, Italian leather shoes. "That's Dante Moretti," Tommy hissed beside her, his face gone pale. "Don't stare, don't engage, just take their order and get back here. And for God's sake, don't screw it up." Maya's hands trembled slightly as she grabbed her order pad, the name triggering recognition, even though she'd never seen the man before. Dante Moretti, the youngest son of the Moretti crime family, the organization that controlled everything from the docks to the Diamond District. His older brother Luca's recent death had been front-page news, a car bombing that the police publicly called an ongoing investigation, while everyone in Brooklyn knew it was the opening move in a war for territory. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. "Good morning, gentlemen," Maya said, keeping her voice steady as she approached their table. "What can I get started for you today?" The 2 bodyguards ordered quickly, black coffee for both, but Dante Moretti studied her with dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her practiced server smile. "Espresso," he said finally, his voice carrying the faint trace of an accent that spoke of Italian grandparents and childhood summers in Sicily. "Double shot, no sugar." Maya nodded, turning to leave when his hand caught her wrist. Not roughly, but firm enough to stop her movement. "You have a daughter," he observed, nodding toward the booth where Lily sat coloring, her small legs swinging beneath the table. "Yes," Maya replied carefully, extracting her wrist from his grip with deliberate gentleness. She's not bothering anyone. I didn't say she was. Something almost like warmth flickered across his austere features. She reminds me of my niece, the same dark hair, same serious expression. Maya escaped back to the counter, her heart pounding harder than the brief interaction warranted. She prepared their drinks with extra care, hyper-aware of Dante Moretti's occasional glances in her direction. Men like him didn't make small talk with waitresses. Everything was calculated, purposeful, and that scared her more than overt threat. She was carrying their order on a tray when she heard Lily's small voice, high and urgent, cutting through the cafe's ambient noise. "Mommy, those men by the bathroom are speaking Italian, and they said something bad." Maya nearly dropped the tray. Through the archway leading to the restrooms, she spotted two men in painters' coveralls she didn't recognize, definitely not the usual contractors who frequented the cafe. They were speaking in low, rapid Italian, and Lily's eyes were wide with a peculiar intensity that meant she understood every word. "Lily, hush, it's not polite to—" "They said the coffee has something in it to make the heart stop," Lily continued, her voice rising. "They said Mr. Moretti won't make it to dessert, and then Mr. Castellano will control the waterfront." The cafe went absolutely silent. Every eye turned toward Lily, then to the two men in coveralls who had frozen in the archway, their faces registering first shock, then fury at being exposed by a child. Maya's training took over before conscious thought could interfere. She pivoted sharply toward Dante Moretti's table, the tray tilting dangerously as his espresso cup began to slide. "Don't drink it!" she shouted, the words tearing from her throat with desperate force. "Don't drink any of it!" Dante's hand, which had been reaching for the small espresso cup, stopped mid-air. His eyes locked onto Maya's face with laser focus, reading the genuine terror there. Then his gaze shifted to the two men in coveralls, who were already moving, hands reaching inside their jackets. What happened next unfolded with brutal efficiency. The two bodyguards were on their feet instantly, weapons appearing with practiced speed. One tackled the first assassin before his gun cleared his waistband. The other fired twice, controlled shots that dropped the second man before he could aim at Dante. Maya's body moved on pure instinct, diving toward Lily's booth and throwing herself over her daughter as chaos erupted throughout the cafe. Customers screamed, scattering toward the exits. The espresso cup shattered on the floor. And through it all, Maya felt Lily's small body trembling beneath hers, her daughter's arms wrapped tight around her neck. "Everyone out! Now!" one of Dante's bodyguards shouted, his weapon trained on the groaning assassin pinned to the floor. "This establishment is closed!" The cafe emptied in seconds, customers abandoning half-eaten meals and unpaid checks in their desperate flight from violence. Tommy had already disappeared through the back exit, his managerial responsibility clearly not extending to mob shootouts. Within moments, only Maya, Lily, Dante, his two bodyguards, and the two would-be assassins remained. Dante stood slowly, his composure barely ruffled despite coming within seconds of death. He walked calmly to where the espresso sat on the table, pulled a small testing kit from his jacket pocket, the kind Maya had only seen in movies, and dipped a chemical strip into the dark liquid. The strip turned deep purple within seconds. "Ricin," Dante stated, his voice carrying deadly calm. "Sophisticated. Expensive. Castellano's signature." He turned his attention to Maya and Lily, who were still huddled together in the booth. "Your daughter saved my life. How did she know what they were saying?" Maya's arms tightened protectively around Lily as she met Dante Moretti's intense gaze. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to lie, to deflect, to protect her daughter from the interest of a man whose world was built on violence. But the testing strip's purple confirmation and the two men bleeding on the cafe floor made it clear that lies would be neither believed nor forgiven. "She understands languages," Maya admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "All languages. She always has, since she was about 3 years old." Dante's expression shifted from skeptical to fascinated as he processed this information. He moved closer to their booth, his approach measured and non-threatening, as though approaching a skittish animal. He crouched down to Lily's eye level, ignoring the chaos his bodyguards were managing behind him. "Hello, Lily," he said gently, his earlier coldness completely absent. "That was very brave what you did. Can you tell me exactly what those men said?" Lily peeked out from behind her mother's shoulder, her dark eyes studying Dante with the particular solemnity of childhood. "They said the poison was in all 3 cups, but especially in yours because you always drink espresso. They said Mr. Castellano paid them $50,000 to make sure you died today, and that it had to look natural so the police wouldn't investigate." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dante's jaw clenched, the only visible sign of his rage at the detailed betrayal Lily's words revealed. His bodyguards exchanged dark glances, their expressions promising retribution. "How many languages do you speak, Piccola?" Dante asked, using the Italian endearment naturally. "I don't speak them," Lily corrected with childlike precision. "I just understand them when I hear them. Mommy says it's a gift, but sometimes it feels like a secret that I have to keep." Dante nodded slowly, as though this made perfect sense to him. He stood, pulling out his phone and making a rapid call in Italian so fast that even Maya couldn't have followed it without Lily's ability. But she caught enough. Words like breach, Castellano, and immediate response. "Ms. Chen," Dante said, pocketing his phone and turning his full attention to Maya. "What your daughter just did has saved my life, and more importantly, exposed a coordinated attack that would have devastated my organization. I am deeply in your debt." "We don't want anything from you," Maya replied quickly, rising to her feet with Lily still clutching her hand. "We just want to leave and pretend this never happened." A sad smile touched Dante's lips. "I'm afraid that's impossible now. The men who orchestrated this heard your daughter expose their plan. By now, Castellano knows there's a 6-year-old child who can identify his hired killers regardless of what language they speak. That makes her the most dangerous witness in Brooklyn." The implication hit Maya like a physical blow. They'd been trying to survive on tips and ramen noodles, worrying about eviction notices and medical bills. Now they were witnesses to attempted murder, targets of a crime family's cleanup operation. "You're saying we're in danger," Maya stated, forcing herself to think clearly despite the panic clawing at her chest. "I'm saying you were in danger the moment those men heard Lily speak," Dante corrected gently. "But I'm also saying I don't abandon debts, especially to children brave enough to save strangers. You'll both come with me now, to a place where Castellano's reach doesn't extend. You'll be protected, provided for, and kept safe until this situation is permanently resolved." Maya wanted to refuse. Every fiber of her being rebelled against accepting help from a mob boss, from entering a world of violence and corruption that she'd spent her entire life avoiding. But as she looked down at Lily's trusting face, felt the eviction notice still crumpled in her apron pocket, and saw the calculating coldness in the eyes of one of the downed assassins, she realized she had no real choice. "How long?" she asked, her voice steady despite her fear. "Until every person involved in today's attempt is eliminated," Dante replied, with chilling matter-of-factness. "My people are already moving. If we're fortunate, a week. If Castellano proves more embedded than anticipated, perhaps longer." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Dante's bodyguards were already moving, efficiently cleaning up evidence with the speed of long practice. One spoke urgently into a phone, while the other secured the 2 assassins with zip ties. "The police," Maya started, "are on Castellano's payroll, at least the ones who'll respond to this call," Dante finished, "which is another reason you can't stay here. Witnesses have a habit of disappearing before they can give statements that implicate the wrong people." He extended his hand toward her, not demanding, but offering. A choice that wasn't really a choice, but at least had the courtesy of pretending to be one. Maya looked at her daughter one more time, saw the trust in those dark eyes that had somehow saved a stranger's life, and made the only decision a mother could make. "Okay," she whispered, taking Dante's hand. "We'll go with you." The black SUV that pulled up to the cafe's service entrance had windows tinted dark enough to be illegal. Dante's bodyguards hustled them inside with professional efficiency, Maya barely having time to grab Lily's coloring book and backpack before being ushered into the leather interior. Lily pressed her face against the window as Brooklyn blurred past, watching their neighborhood disappear with the wide-eyed fascination of childhood adventure rather than the terror Maya felt coiling in her stomach. They'd left behind everything. Their apartment with its broken heater and peeling wallpaper, Maya's meager wardrobe, the life they'd been desperately trying to build. "Where are we going?" Maya asked, finding her voice as the SUV merged onto the highway. "Somewhere safe," Dante replied from the front passenger seat. He turned slightly to look at them, his expression softer than it had been in the cafe. "My family's estate in Westchester. It's been in the Moretti name for 3 generations, and the security is comprehensive." The drive took 40 minutes, civilization gradually giving way to tree-lined roads and estates hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. The Moretti property announced itself with understated elegance. A wrought iron gate bearing a subtle family crest, a winding driveway through manicured grounds, and finally, a sprawling Italian villa that looked transplanted directly from Tuscany. Maya had never seen anything like it. The main house stretched across perfectly maintained lawns, its honey-colored stone glowing in the afternoon sunlight. Fountains bubbled in courtyard gardens. Armed men in suits patrolled the perimeter with casual vigilance that suggested this was routine rather than exceptional. "It's like a castle," Lily breathed, her earlier fear forgotten in the face of such magnificence. "My grandfather built it in 1953, Dante explained, a note of pride entering his voice. He wanted to recreate the villa he'd left behind in Sicily, down to the last detail. The olive trees were imported from our ancestral property outside Palermo." A woman in her 60s met them at the entrance, her gray hair pulled back in an elegant bun, her sharp eyes assessing Maya and Lily with the practiced judgment of long experience. "This is Carmela," Dante introduced. "She manages the household and will see to anything you need." "Welcome," Carmela said, her accent thick but her English clear. "You must be exhausted, Cara. Come, I'll show you to your rooms." The guest suite Carmela led them to occupied the entire East Wing's second floor. 3 rooms, a master bedroom with a king-sized bed draped in silk, a smaller bedroom clearly meant for Lily with a canopy bed that made the child gasp with delight, and a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. "This is too much," Maya protested, feeling desperately out of place in her cafe uniform among such luxury. "Nonsense," Carmela replied briskly, already moving to the walk-in closet where she began pulling out clothing. "Mr. Dante called ahead. These should fit you both until we can arrange proper shopping. Dinner is at 7. I'll send someone to fetch you." She swept out, leaving Maya and Lily alone in opulence that felt more suffocating than comforting. Lily immediately claimed the canopy bed, bouncing experimentally on the mattress, with delighted giggles that sounded almost normal despite the surreal circumstances. Maya sank onto the edge of the master bed, her hands shaking as the adrenaline finally began to fade. They were safe, for now, protected by a mob boss who owed them a debt, trapped in a gilded cage while men with guns decided their fate. She pulled out her phone, intending to call someone. But who? Her mother was 3,000 miles away in California. Her few friends were work acquaintances who'd never understand this situation. The eviction notice in her pocket felt like a cruel joke now. What did $1,800 matter when her daughter had become a target for organized crime? A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Dante stood in the doorway, having changed from his suit into dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, looking somehow more dangerous in casual clothes than he had in armor of expensive tailoring. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the sitting room. Maya nodded, too exhausted to refuse. They settled into facing armchairs while Lily explored her new bedroom, her excited chatter a surreal soundtrack to their conversation. My people have already identified the leak, Dante began without preamble. One of my uncle's security team was on Castellano's payroll. He's been dealt with. The two men from the cafe are being questioned, and we've intercepted communications confirming that Castellano knows about Lily's ability. Maya's blood ran cold. What does that mean for us? It means the threat is real and immediate, Dante replied honestly. Castellano can't afford to have a witness who can understand his organization's communications regardless of language. He'll send others, and they won't be deterred by failure. So we just hide here forever? The bitterness in Maya's voice surprised even herself. No, Dante said firmly. We eliminate the threat permanently. Castellano has been pushing into my territory for months. My brother's death was his opening move, meant to destabilize our organization during the transition of power. Today's attempt was meant to complete that destabilization. He miscalculated. The cold certainty in Dante's voice sent a chill down Maya's spine. She was looking at a man who dealt in permanent solutions, who lived in a world where problems were eliminated rather than negotiated. I don't want Lily exposed to violence, Maya stated, surprised by her own audacity in making demands of someone like Dante Moretti. To her surprise, his expression softened. Neither do I. She'll remain here, protected by security that has kept my family safe for 3 generations. You have my word that no harm will come to her while she's under my protection. The sincerity in his voice was unexpected, as was the way his eyes kept drifting toward Lily's bedroom, where her happy chatter could be heard. Something in his expression reminded Maya that he'd mentioned a niece, that beneath the dangerous exterior was perhaps a man who valued family, even if his definition of family came with bodyguards and blood feuds. Why are you really doing this? Maya asked quietly. You could have just relocated us somewhere far away, given us new identities, and washed your hands of the whole situation. Dante was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes fixed on something beyond the windows. When he spoke, his voice carried weight of old pain barely concealed. My brother's daughter was 5 years old when he died. She was in the car with him, survived only because her car seat was positioned away from the blast. She doesn't speak anymore. Trauma, the doctors say. Understanding crashed over Maya. Lily reminds you of her. Lily reminds me that children are innocent, even in our world, especially in our world. Dante's gaze returned to Maya's face. Your daughter had every reason to stay quiet today, to protect herself. Instead, she chose to save a stranger. That kind of courage deserves protection, not abandonment. The conversation was interrupted by Carmela announcing dinner. The formal dining room seated 20, but only 3 places had been set at one end of the long mahogany table. Lily sat between Maya and Dante, her eyes wide as servants presented course after course of authentic Italian cuisine. This is osso buco, Dante explained, cutting Lily's meat with surprising gentleness. It was my favorite when I was your age. My grandmother made it every Sunday. It's good, Lily declared through a mouthful. Her earlier fear of the intimidating man completely vanished. Can you really speak Italian, or do you just understand it like me? I speak it, Dante confirmed, switching to Italian mid-sentence. My father insisted all his children be fluent. It was the language of business and family. He's saying his father made him learn it for work and for his relatives. Lily translated automatically for Maya's benefit, then added in Italian. My mommy doesn't speak Italian, but she's really smart. She can make coffee art, and she knows exactly how much milk to use without measuring. Dante's laugh was genuine and surprised, the sound transforming his severe features into something almost boyish. Your daughter has excellent manners, Maya, and impressive translation skills. Maya watched their interaction with confused emotions warring in her chest. This should feel wrong, sitting in a mobster's mansion, eating dinner with a man who just ordered someone dealt with, allowing her daughter to bond with someone whose world was built on violence. But Lily was smiling more than she had in months. eating proper meals instead of ramen noodles, and for the first time since Maya's ex-husband had disappeared, someone else was shouldering the crushing weight of keeping them safe. After dinner, Carmela appeared with hot chocolate and what she called biscotti della nonna, grandmother's cookies, leading Lily away to the kitchen with promises of teaching her to dip them properly, which left Maya alone with Dante in the villa's library, surrounded by leather-bound books and the scent of old paper and expensive whiskey. "You're not what I expected," Maya admitted, accepting the small glass of amber liquid he offered. "What did you expect?" Dante asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "Someone crueler, more obviously dangerous." Maya took a sip, the whiskey burning pleasantly down her throat. "But you're kind to Lily. Gentle, even." "Being dangerous doesn't preclude being kind," Dante replied, settling into the chair across from her. "The world isn't divided so cleanly into good and evil, Maya. We all contain multitudes." The use of her first name felt intimate, too personal for the short time they'd known each other, yet somehow it also felt natural, as though the extremity of their circumstances had accelerated normal boundaries of acquaintance. "Tell me about Lily's father," Dante said, the request gentle but direct. Maya's hand tightened around her glass. "There's not much to tell. We met in college, got pregnant young, got married younger. He couldn't handle the responsibility of fatherhood, started disappearing for days, then weeks, drained our bank account and vanished completely when Lily was 2. I haven't seen him since." "He's a fool," Dante stated flatly. "That remarkable child. How could anyone walk away from her?" "Not everyone is capable of staying," Maya replied, old wounds aching with familiar pain. "Some people only know how to leave." Dante's expression darkened with something that might have been understanding. "My father stayed, but his presence was often more damaging than his absence would have been. He ruled through fear, even within his own family. When he died, I felt relief more than grief." The confession surprised Maya with its honesty. She found herself studying Dante more carefully, the tension he carried in his shoulders, the way his eyes constantly monitored their surroundings even in his own home, the careful control that suggested a man who'd learned early that showing weakness invited attack. "Is that why you're different?" she asked. "Why are you kind to Lily instead of seeing her as just a useful asset?" "Perhaps," Dante acknowledged. "Or perhaps your daughter simply has a gift for seeing people clearly, and I find myself wanting to be worthy of how she sees me." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Maya should maintain distance, should remember who and what Dante Moretti was, but exhaustion and whiskey, and the strange intimacy of shared trauma were lowering her defenses in ways she knew she'd regret. "I should check on Lily," she said, standing abruptly and putting physical distance between them. Dante rose as well, ever the gentleman despite his profession. "Of course. Carmela will help her settle for the night. You'll find everything you need in your rooms. And Maya?" He waited until she met his eyes. "You're safe here. Both of you. I give you my word." In his world, Maya was learning, a man's word was currency more valuable than money, and despite everything she knew she should feel about Dante Moretti, she found herself believing him. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through silk curtains and the disorienting realization that she wasn't in her cramped Brooklyn apartment. The events of yesterday crashed back with startling clarity: the cafe, the poison, Dante Moretti's dark eyes watching her with an intensity that had nothing to do with gratitude. She found Lily already awake, sitting at the small table in her bedroom with Carmela, both of them speaking rapid Italian over a breakfast of fresh pastries and fruit. The sight stopped Maya in the doorway, watching her daughter laugh at something the older woman said, responding in flawless Italian, as though she'd spoken it her entire life. "Your daughter is teaching me Sicilian dialect," Carmela announced with delight when she noticed Maya. "My family is from the north. We never learned the old southern ways, but she hears it perfectly. I heard Mr. Dante speaking it on the phone last night, Lily explained, switching effortlessly back to English. It sounds like regular Italian but with different music, like comparing jazz to classical. Maya accepted the espresso Carmela poured, marveling at how quickly Lily had adapted to their surreal new circumstances. Children were resilient in ways adults couldn't match, finding joy even in the strangest situations. Mr. Dante requests your presence in his study when you're ready, Carmela said, her tone suggesting this was an invitation that shouldn't be declined. I'll keep La Piccola entertained. We're making tiramisu this morning. The study occupied the villa's west wing, its walls lined with books in multiple languages, and what Maya suspected were priceless antiquities from Italy's long history. Dante stood at the window overlooking the estate's grounds, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in clipped Sicilian, too rapid for Maya to follow even if she'd understood the language. He ended the call as she entered, his expression grave. We need to talk about the Castellano situation. There have been developments overnight. Maya sank into the leather chair he indicated, her stomach knotting with dread. What kind of developments? Castellano sent men to your apartment building last night. They questioned your neighbors, specifically asking about Lily and her unusual abilities. When they didn't get the information they wanted, they set fire to the building. The blood drained from Maya's face. The other tenants, everyone evacuated safely, Dante assured her quickly. My people were monitoring the building and alerted the fire department immediately. But Maya, you need to understand the severity of this. Castellano is willing to destroy an entire building to send a message. He won't stop until he eliminates what he sees as a threat to his organization. Maya's hands trembled as she processed the information. Families she'd known for years, people who'd shared their stories over morning coffee at the cafe, all displaced because her daughter had saved a stranger's life. The guilt threatened to overwhelm her. This is my fault, she whispered. If I'd just kept Lily quiet, then I'd be dead, and Castellano would have succeeded in his plan to take over the waterfront, Dante interrupted firmly. He moved to crouch beside her chair, his dark eyes level with hers. You didn't create this situation, Maya. Castellano did when he decided to expand his territory through murder. Your daughter's courage exposed his plan. Don't diminish that by accepting guilt that isn't yours to carry. The conviction in his voice cut through Maya's spiral of self-blame. She met his gaze, seeing something there beyond the cold calculation of a crime boss, genuine concern, even anger on her behalf. What happens now? She asked. Now we end this, Dante replied, standing and returning to his desk where multiple phones and laptops displayed what appeared to be surveillance feeds and encrypted messages. Castellano has made a critical error. By attacking civilians and destroying property, he's violated the accords that keep our organizations from all-out war. The Commission will side with me when I move against him. The Commission? The 5 families that control organized crime in New York, Dante explained. We operate under certain rules to maintain order and minimize attention from federal authorities. Castellano's actions have been too visible, too reckless. They want him removed as much as I do now. Maya processed this information, getting a glimpse into a world she'd only known through movies and sensationalized news reports. There was structure here, politics, even a twisted sense of honor among criminals who followed their own codes. How long will it take? She asked quietly. The commission meets in 3 days. Once they authorize my response, a week at most to dismantle Castellano's organization. Dante's expression hardened. He's overextended himself trying to appear stronger than he is. When I push back, he'll collapse. And until then, we stay here? Until then, you're the most protected people in New York, Dante confirmed. I've tripled security. No one gets within half a mile of this estate without my knowledge. A knock at the door interrupted them. One of Dante's men, Marco, Maya had learned, entered with urgent news. Sir, we've intercepted communications. Castellano is reaching out to the Yakuza for additional manpower. He knows he's vulnerable, and he's trying to shore up his position before the commission meeting. Dante's jaw clenched, the only visible sign of his frustration. The Yakuza won't risk antagonizing the commission by supporting him, but monitor it. I want to know every move he makes. Marco nodded and left. Dante turned back to Maya, some of his controlled facade slipping to reveal the weight of leadership he carried. I'm sorry you're caught in this. My world isn't kind to innocents. Lily and I stopped being innocent bystanders the moment she spoke up in that cafe, Maya replied, surprising herself with her directness. We're part of this now, whether we like it or not. So stop apologizing and just keep us safe. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Respect, perhaps, or recognition of strength he hadn't expected. I will, he promised. On my family's name, I will. The days that followed developed an unexpected rhythm. Mornings with Carmela teaching Lily to cook traditional Italian dishes while chattering in a dozen different dialects. Afternoons in the villa's extensive library where Lily devoured books in languages Maya didn't know existed. Evenings when Dante would join them for dinner, the formal dining room gradually feeling less intimidating as conversation flowed more easily. Maya watched Dante with Lily and saw layers of the man beneath the mobster. The way he patiently explained the history behind family heirlooms displayed throughout the villa. How he laughed genuinely at Lily's innocent observations about the world. The protective instinct that flared whenever his phone brought news of Castellano's movements. You're good with children, Maya observed one evening after Lily had gone to bed, and they sat in the library sharing wine. Natural at it. Dante's expression clouded. My niece, Sophia, my brother's daughter. Before the bombing, I saw her every week. Took her for gelato, taught her to ride a bike in these very gardens. Now she doesn't speak, doesn't smile, just stares at nothing while doctors try treatments that don't work. The pain in his voice was raw, unguarded in a way Maya suspected he rarely allowed himself. Where is she now? With my sister-in-law in Italy. She couldn't bear to stay in New York after Luca died. Can't say I blame her. Dante refilled their glasses, his movements controlled, but his eyes distant with memory. Sophia was there when it happened. The blast threw her clear, but she saw everything. 5 years old, and she watched her father die. Maya's heart ached for the child she'd never met, for the trauma that had stolen her voice and her childhood. Is that why you're so determined to end this war? To prevent more children from suffering? Partly, Dante admitted. But also because I'm tired, Maya. Tired of violence being the only language we speak. My father built this empire on fear and blood. My brother tried to maintain it the same way and paid with his life. I keep thinking there has to be a different path forward. The confession surprised Maya. This wasn't the ruthless mobster from news reports, but a man questioning the legacy he'd inherited, searching for meaning beyond the violence that had defined his family for generations. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. What would that different path look like? Maya asked softly. I don't know yet, Dante replied honestly. But maybe it starts with protecting innocence instead of destroying it, with building something beyond territorial disputes and revenge. Their eyes met across the small space of the library, and Maya felt that dangerous pull again, the attraction she kept trying to dismiss as gratitude or Stockholm Syndrome or anything other than what it actually was. Genuine connection with a man who should be completely wrong for her, but somehow felt achingly right in these stolen moments. I should go, she said, standing abruptly before she did something foolish like reach for him. Thank you for the wine, and for everything. Dante rose as well, ever the gentleman. Maya, he called as she reached the door. When this is over, when Castellano is no longer a threat, you don't have to leave. You and Lily, you could stay here if you wanted. I'd make sure you had everything you needed. The offer hung between them, weighted with implications, Neither was ready to examine too closely. Maya's throat tightened with emotions she couldn't name. "Let's get through the next week first," she managed. "Then we can talk about what comes after." She fled before he could see the tears threatening, before she had to admit how much she wanted to say yes. The commission meeting took place in neutral territory, a private room in an upscale Manhattan restaurant owned by none of the five families. Dante left the estate at dawn with a security detail of 8 men, his expression grim as he prepared to present his case against Castellano. Maya spent the day unable to focus on anything, her anxiety transmitted to Lily, who abandoned her usual activities to stay close to her mother. They ended up in the library together, Lily reading aloud in French from a book she'd found while Maya pretended to listen, her mind entirely on the meeting happening across the city. When Dante's call finally came at 6 in the evening, Maya's hands shook as she answered. "It's done," he said without preamble. "The commission has authorized full response against Castellano's organization. By this time tomorrow, the threat will be permanently eliminated." Relief flooded through Maya, so intense it made her dizzy. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," Dante's voice softened. "It's almost over, Maya. Hold on just a little longer." But the relief was short-lived. That night, alarms shattered the villa's peaceful silence at 2 in the morning. Maya jolted awake to flashing lights and the sound of running feet in the hallways. She grabbed Lily from the adjoining bedroom and held her close as heavy footsteps approached their suite. Marco burst through the door, weapon drawn. "Panic room now! We have a breach!" Maya's training from the safety briefing Dante had insisted on kicked in. She scooped up Lily and ran for the hidden door behind the sitting room bookshelf, her heart pounding as Marco ushered them inside the reinforced safe room. The heavy door sealed with a pneumatic hiss, cutting off the sounds of chaos outside. Emergency lighting illuminated the small space, maybe 12 feet square, lined with supplies and equipped with monitors showing security camera feeds from around the estate. On the screens, Maya watched armed men in tactical gear pour over the estate's walls. Too many of them, too well coordinated to be a simple attack. This was a full assault, Castellano's desperate gambit to eliminate the witnesses before Dante could move against him. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whispered, pressing against Maya's side. "I know, baby, but we're safe in here." Mr. Dante made sure of it. Maya kept her voice steady, even as she watched gunfire erupt on the monitors, Dante's security team engaging the intruders across the estate's grounds. The door to the panic room was designed to withstand explosives. They had 3 days of supplies, separate ventilation, and a direct line to Dante's personal phone. Maya's fingers trembled as she dialed, praying he'd answer. "Maya." His voice came through immediately, tight with controlled fury. "Are you and Lily secure?" "We're in the panic room. Marco got us here. Dante, there are so many of them." "I know. I'm 10 minutes out with reinforcements. Do not open that door for anyone but me, do you understand?" "No one." "I understand." "Marco will protect the entrance with his life. You're safe where you are. Just stay calm and wait for me." The call ended, leaving Maya alone with Lily and the monitors showing a battle raging across the estate that had become their sanctuary. She watched Dante's men fight with professional precision, watched intruders fall, watched the beautiful gardens she'd walked through become a war zone. Then she saw movement near the panic room entrance. On the monitor showing the hallway outside, 3 intruders approached, their tactical gear marking them as Castellano's men. Marco engaged them immediately, dropping 2 before the third managed to wound him. Maya's breath caught as she watched Marco fall, clutching his shoulder but still fighting, still defending the door between the attackers and the 2 civilians hiding behind reinforced steel. "Mommy, that man is hurt because of us," Lily said, her voice small and scared. "He's protecting us because it's his job," Maya replied, though guilt clawed at her chest. "Because Mr. Dante asked him to keep us safe." The third attacker advanced toward the panic room door, and Maya realized with horror that he was placing what looked like explosives along the seam. The reinforced door could withstand standard breaches, but this looked like military-grade equipment, far beyond what the security design had anticipated. Maya grabbed the emergency phone again, her hands shaking. Dante, they're trying to breach the panic room. They have explosives. I'm pulling into the estate now. Hold on, Maya, just hold on. The monitor showed the attacker retreating from the door, his hand moving toward a detonator. Maya pulled Lily to the far corner of the panic room, shielding her daughter's body with her own as she braced for the explosion. But it never came. On the monitor, Dante appeared like an avenging angel, his weapon firing with deadly precision. The attacker fell before he could trigger the explosives. Marco stumbled to his feet, gesturing down the hallway where more of Dante's reinforcements were systematically clearing the estate room by room. The battle lasted another 20 minutes that felt like hours. Maya held Lily and watched the monitors as Dante's forces overwhelmed Castellano's assault team. The precision and brutality of it was terrible to witness. But Maya couldn't look away, couldn't pretend she didn't understand that this violence was the price of their safety. Finally, Dante's voice came through the panic room's intercom. Maya, it's over. I'm outside. You can open the door. Maya hesitated only a moment before entering the code to unseal the reinforced door. It swung open to reveal Dante standing in the hallway, his expensive suit torn and blood-stained, his face grim, but his eyes softening the moment he saw them. Are you hurt? Maya demanded, stepping out and searching him for injuries even as her hands shook. Not my blood, Dante replied quietly. His attention shifted to Lily, who peered out from behind her mother. Are you okay, Piccola? Lily nodded, then surprised everyone by launching herself at Dante, her small arms wrapping around his waist. You came back, she said, her voice muffled against his ruined jacket. You promised you'd keep us safe, and you did. Dante's expression cracked, something raw and vulnerable breaking through his controlled exterior as he carefully returned the child's embrace. Over Lily's head, his eyes met Maya's, and she saw everything he wasn't saying. The fear he'd felt racing back to the estate, the rage at Castellano for attacking what he'd claimed to protect, the profound relief that they were unharmed. Always, he promised, his voice rough with emotion. I will always come back for you both. Marco approached, pressing a hand to his wounded shoulder. Sir, we've secured the perimeter. All hostiles are neutralized, but there's something you need to see. Dante gently extricated himself from Lily's embrace, gesturing for Carmela, who had appeared with blankets and hot chocolate, to take the child. Come with me, he said to Maya. There's something you should know. He led her through the estate to what appeared to be a converted wine cellar, now serving as an interrogation room. One of the attackers sat zip-tied to a chair, his tactical vest stripped away to reveal a communication device still crackling with transmissions. He's not one of Castellano's regulars, Marco explained. Yakuza enforcer, brought in specially for tonight's assault. And he's been very talkative about who paid for this operation. Dante leaned close to the captured man, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Tell her what you told me about who ordered this attack. The Yakuza enforcer's eyes flicked to Maya, then back to Dante. Castellano didn't plan this. He's a middleman. Someone else paid him to eliminate you and the witnesses. Someone who's been funding his territorial expansion for months. Maya's blood ran cold. Who? Your ex-husband, Dante stated, his voice hard as granite. James Chen. Apparently, he's been working with Castellano's organization for the past 2 years, laundering money through various businesses. When he found out you and Lily were under my protection, he saw an opportunity to eliminate his abandoned family and settle his debts to Castellano in one move. The betrayal hit Maya like a physical blow. James, who'd walked away from them, who'd left them struggling, had tried to have them killed to cover his own criminal activities. He said you'd be better off dead than involved with the Moretti family, the enforcer continued, his accent thick. Said the kid was too smart for her own good anyway, always understanding things she shouldn't. Rage flooded through Maya, so intense it made her hands shake. Where is he? In Castellano's custody, Dante replied, being held at one of his warehouses in Red Hook. They're waiting to see if tonight's assault succeeded before deciding whether to release him or eliminate him as a liability. Maya looked at Dante, seeing her own fury reflected in his dark eyes. I want to see him. I want James to explain to my face why he tried to murder his own daughter. Maya, don't tell me it's too dangerous, she interrupted, her voice steel. I've been shot at, had my home burned down, and spent an hour in a panic room while men tried to blow their way in to kill us. I'm already in this, Dante, and I deserve to face the man who did this to us. Dante studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. We move on to the warehouse at dawn. You can come, but you stay behind me at all times. Agreed? Agreed. The Red Hook warehouse loomed dark against the pre-dawn sky, its corrugated metal sides pocked with rust and neglect. Dante's assault team moved with military precision, cutting through Castellano's minimal security like a knife through silk. Maya wore a bulletproof vest that felt impossibly heavy as she followed Dante through the warehouse's maze of containers and crates. The sounds of brief firefights echoed through the vast space, quickly silenced as Dante's men overwhelmed Castellano's forces. They found James Chen in a small office on the warehouse's second floor, handcuffed to a radiator, his expensive suit rumpled and his face showing signs of recent beatings. His eyes widened when he saw Maya. Maya? What are you doing here? These people are dangerous. Shut up, Maya interrupted, her voice cold. You tried to have us killed, James. You tried to murder your own daughter. James's face paled. I didn't. They said you'd just be relocated, that Castellano would— Liar, Dante stated flatly. He tossed a tablet onto the desk showing intercepted communications. You authorized payment for the assault on my estate. You specifically requested that no witnesses survive. Your own daughter's death, James. You signed off on it. James sagged against his restraints, all pretense crumbling. I owed them too much money. They said this would clear my debt. And it's not like you were a good mother anyway, Maya. Raising her in that shitty apartment, working yourself to death for minimum wage. Maya's slap echoed through the small office. I worked minimum wage because you drained our accounts and disappeared. I raised our daughter alone because you abandoned us. And still, I never wished you dead. But you tried to kill her, James. Your own child. Tears streamed down her face, years of accumulated pain and betrayal pouring out. Lily saved a stranger's life because I taught her to be brave, to help people even when it's scary. She's 6 years old and she has more courage and decency than you'll ever possess. James started to respond, but Dante's gun pressed against his temple silenced him instantly. You have 3 seconds to give me a reason not to end your worthless life right here. Dante, don't, Maya said softly. He's not worth it, and I don't want Lily to know her father died violently, even if he deserved it. Dante's jaw clenched, but he lowered the weapon. You're lucky she's more merciful than I am. He turned to Marco. Take him to federal custody. I've already arranged testimony that will put him away for 20 years minimum. He'll spend the rest of his pathetic life in a cage. As Marco dragged James away, the broken man looked back at Maya one last time. I'm sorry, he whispered. No, you're not, Maya replied. You're just sorry you got caught. Outside the warehouse, dawn broke over New York Harbor in shades of gold and pink. Dante's phone buzzed with confirmation. Castellano had been arrested by federal agents armed with evidence Dante had provided. His organization was being dismantled piece by piece. It's over, Dante said quietly, standing beside Maya as they watched the sunrise. The commission authorized my takeover of Castellano's territories. James will spend decades in prison. The Yakuza have withdrawn their support. You and Lily are safe now. Maya should have felt relief. Instead, she felt hollow, drained by the betrayal of a man she'd once loved, exhausted by the violence she'd witnessed, uncertain about the future that stretched ahead. What happens now? She asked, echoing her question from days before. Dante turned to face her fully, his expression open in a way she'd never seen. Now you get to choose, Maya. No more running, no more hiding. You can go anywhere, do anything. I'll make sure you and Lily have everything you need: new identities, money, protection, a fresh start wherever you want it. And if I don't want to leave? The question emerged before Maya could examine it too closely, before fear could silence her. Something shifted in Dante's expression: hope, carefully controlled but unmistakable. Then you stay. You and Lily make a home at the estate. I make sure no one ever threatens you again. And we see where this goes, this thing between us that neither of us expected. Maya stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body. Your world is dangerous, Dante, built on violence and codes I don't understand. How can I bring my daughter into that? My world is changing, Dante replied. Has to change, because the old ways got my brother killed and my niece traumatized. I'm building something different, Maya. Legitimate businesses, political connections, a future where my children won't have to choose between family and morality. It won't happen overnight, but I'm committed to it. Because of Sophia? Maya asked gently. Because of Sophia, Dante confirmed. And because of Lily. Because I've seen what innocence looks like, what courage looks like, and I want to protect that instead of destroy it. You and your daughter, you've shown me there's more to life than the empire I inherited. Maya's hand found his, their fingers intertwining naturally. This is crazy. We barely know each other. We've been through more in a week than most people experience in years, Dante countered. And I know what matters: that you're strong enough to slap your ex-husband while standing in a warehouse full of criminals, that you trust me with your daughter's safety, that when I'm with you both, I remember what it feels like to be human, instead of just a weapon my family forged. His other hand cupped her face with surprising gentleness. Stay, Maya. Not because you're obligated, not because you're afraid. Stay because you want to see what we could build together. Maya rose on her toes and kissed him, answering with action instead of words. Dante responded immediately, his arms wrapping around her with a fierce protectiveness that no longer frightened her. The kiss tasted of coffee and violence and unexpected hope, a promise of something new rising from the ashes of everything they'd survived. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Maya smiled. 1 month, she said. Give us 1 month at the estate, living normally, away from warehouses and gunfights. Let me see who you are when you're not in crisis mode. If it works, if Lily's happy and I can trust this is real, then we'll talk about permanence. 1 month, Dante agreed, relief and joy transforming his severe features. I can work with 1 month. As they walked back to the waiting SUV hand in hand, the future remained uncertain, but no longer terrifying. Maya had survived her ex-husband's betrayal, a mob war, and the complete destruction of her old life. Whatever came next, she'd face it with the dangerous man beside her and the extraordinary daughter waiting for them at home. Sometimes salvation came from the most unlikely sources. Sometimes family was built from crisis and choice rather than blood. And sometimes, just sometimes, the scariest thing you could do was trust that tomorrow might actually be better than today. The month Maya had requested passed in a rhythm that felt almost surreal in its domesticity. Mornings began with Lily's laughter echoing through the villa as she helped Carmela prepare breakfast, her small hands learning to knead dough for fresh bread while chattering in whatever language struck her fancy that day. Afternoons found Maya in the estate's garden, reading while Dante worked from his study, the violence of his world kept carefully at bay by men in suits who handled problems before they reached the villa's peaceful grounds. But it was the evenings that transformed everything. Dinners where Dante would arrive with his jacket discarded and his tie loosened, sitting at the table like a man rather than a mafia boss, telling stories about his grandmother's village in Sicily while Lily peppered him with endless questions. Walks through the garden after dark, Maya's hand finding Dante's with increasing naturalness, while fireflies danced among the olive trees his grandfather had planted decades ago. You're different here, Maya observed one night 3 weeks into their arrangement, watching Dante play chess with Lily in the library. Softer, somehow. This is who I am when I'm not performing, Dante replied, moving his knight to block Lily's aggressive bishop attack. My father taught me that showing softness was weakness. I'm learning he was wrong about a lot of things. Lily captured his knight with a triumphant grin. Checkmate in 4 moves, Mr. Dante. You're distracted tonight. I am, Dante admitted, his eyes finding Maya's across the room. But it's the best kind of distraction. The fragile peace shattered on day 28. Maya woke to find Dante already dressed in a full suit despite the early hour, his phone pressed to his ear while he issued rapid orders in Italian. The tension radiating from his body set off every alarm bell she'd learned to recognize. What's wrong? She asked, pulling on a robe and crossing to where he stood by the window. Dante ended the call, his expression grim. The commission is calling an emergency meeting. There's been a development with the Castellano situation, specifically regarding his connections to certain political figures. They want me in Manhattan in 2 hours. Is it dangerous? Everything about my world is dangerous, Maya. You know that. His voice was gentle but honest. But this is necessary. Castellano kept records of everyone he paid off. Judges, politicians, police commissioners. That information is leverage the commission wants to control before it falls into the wrong hands. Maya's stomach knotted with familiar anxiety. The month of peaceful domesticity had made her complacent, allowed her to forget that Dante's world operated under different rules, where power shifts happened in shadows, and violence was currency. How long will you be gone? The meeting shouldn't take more than a few hours. I'll be back for dinner. Dante pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead with tenderness that still surprised her. Marco and the security team will be here. You and Lily are completely safe. But safe was relative in a world where enemies could emerge from anywhere. Dante left at 7 with his usual security detail, the convoy of black SUVs disappearing down the estate's winding driveway. Maya tried to maintain normalcy for Lily's sake, helping with her homeschool lessons and listening to her practice violin. But anxiety gnawed at her, a persistent whisper that something was wrong. The call came at noon. Maya. Dante's voice was tight with controlled fury. Don't panic, but I need you to listen very carefully. We have a situation. Her blood turned to ice. What kind of situation? Someone leaked information about Castellano's records to a rival family, the Sartores. They're making a move to acquire the evidence before the commission can secure it. There's a possibility they know about you and Lily, about your role in exposing Castellano's initial attack. Maya's hand tightened on the phone. You said we were safe. You promised, and you are safe, Dante interrupted firmly. The estate's security is impenetrable, but I need you to take Lily to the panic room as a precaution while I handle this. Can you do that for me? Yes, Maya whispered, already moving toward Lily's room, where her daughter was reading a book in French. Dante, be careful. Always am, Kara. I'll call you when it's clear. The endearment sent warmth through her fear. In 3 weeks their relationship had evolved beyond protector and protected into something neither had anticipated, but both desperately wanted. Maya refused to lose that now, refused to let Dante's dangerous world destroy what they were building. Lily, sweetheart, we need to go to the safe room, Maya said calmly, keeping her voice steady. Just like we practiced, remember? Lily looked up from her book, her dark eyes too knowing for a 6-year-old. Is Mr. Dante in trouble? He's handling some business. We're just being extra cautious. They made it to the panic room without incident, the heavy door sealing behind them, with its familiar pneumatic hiss. The monitors showed the estate's grounds peaceful and empty, save for the security patrols Marco had positioned at strategic points. An hour passed, then 2. Maya's phone remained silent, despite her constant checking. On the monitors, she watched the security team maintain their positions, watched clouds drift across the afternoon sky, watched nothing happen while anxiety built in her chest like a living thing. Then movement at the estate's main gate caught her attention. A delivery truck, flowers, according to the logo on its side. One of the security guards approached to verify credentials, while another checked underneath with a mirror. Standard protocol. Maya watched the guard open the back of the truck, expecting to see arrangements for the villa's weekly floral delivery. Instead, she saw his body jerk backward as gunfire erupted from inside the vehicle. "Mommy?" Lily's voice was small and frightened. "Stay behind me," Maya commanded, her eyes glued to the monitors as armed men poured from the delivery truck. Not a handful, but dozens, overwhelming the gate's security through sheer numbers. She grabbed the emergency phone, dialing Dante with shaking hands. It went straight to voicemail. He was probably in the commission meeting where phones were prohibited. She tried Marco next. "I see them." Marco's voice came through, tight with tension. "We're engaging now. Stay in the panic room no matter what you hear, understand?" Gunfire echoed through the estate, audible even through the panic room's soundproofing. On the monitors, Maya watched Marco's team fight with desperate efficiency, but the attackers kept coming, better armed and more numerous than Castellano's assault had been. Then she saw him on one of the external cameras, a man in an expensive suit directing the assault from behind the initial wave. Even on the grainy footage, Maya recognized Vincent Sartore from news reports. Head of the Sartore family, one of the commission members who should have been at the meeting with Dante. Her mind raced through the implications. This wasn't a random attack. This was a setup. Lure Dante away to a fake commission meeting while the real threat descended on the unprotected estate. "They're coming for us specifically," Maya realized aloud. "They know we're here." On the monitor, she watched Sartori's men systematically clear the villa, moving with the precision of people who knew exactly where to find their targets. Marco's team was falling back, outnumbered and outgunned, protecting the panic room corridor, but losing ground with every passing minute. Maya's phone finally rang. Dante. "There is no commission meeting," he said without preamble, his voice deadly calm in a way that was more terrifying than rage. "It was a trap to get me away from the estate. The Sartores are making a play for power using you and Lily as leverage. I'm 15 minutes out, but Maya—" "I know, they're already here." She heard Dante curse in Sicilian, the words harsh and violent. "The panic room will hold. It's designed to withstand—" An explosion rocked the villa, so powerful Maya felt it through the reinforced walls. On the monitors, she watched part of the corridor outside the panic room collapse from a shaped charge that should never have made it past the estate's security. "They have military-grade explosives," Maya reported, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Dante, they're going to breach the panic room." "Then you run," Dante commanded, steel in his voice. "There's an emergency tunnel behind the false wall in the panic room's northeast corner. It leads to the gardener's cottage at the edge of the property. Take Lily and go now. My men will buy you time." Maya found the hidden panel he'd described, her fingers fumbling with the release mechanism. The wall swung open to reveal a narrow tunnel lit by emergency lights, sloping downward into darkness. "What about Marco and the others?" she asked, even as she pulled Lily toward the tunnel. "They're doing their jobs. Your job is to survive and protect Lily. Move, Maya. Now." The panic room door began to glow red-hot as cutting torches attacked its hinges. Maya grabbed Lily's hand and plunged into the tunnel, the panel sliding shut behind them just as the panic room door fell inward with a crash of tortured metal. The tunnel seemed endless, dirt walls pressing close as they ran through the claustrophobic darkness. Lily's breathing came in frightened gasps, but she didn't cry, didn't slow down. Her small hand gripped Maya's with desperate strength. They emerged in the gardener's cottage as promised, the small stone structure overgrown with ivy and forgotten at the estate's far corner. Through the windows, Maya could see the main villa burning in the distance, smoke rising against the afternoon sky. "We can't stay here," Maya said, searching the cottage for anything useful. She found keys to an old truck parked behind the building, its bed filled with garden supplies. Mommy, someone's coming, Lily whispered, pressing against the window. Maya looked out to see three of Sartore's men approaching the cottage, moving with the systematic search pattern of professionals who knew exactly what they were hunting. No more running, no more hiding while others fought her battles. Maya grabbed a shovel from the garden supplies, the weight of it unfamiliar but reassuring in her hands. She positioned Lily in the cottage's small closet, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. Stay here and stay quiet no matter what you hear. When Mr. Dante arrives, you tell him where I am. Understand? Mommy, no. I love you, baby, so much. Maya closed the closet door and stepped outside to face the approaching men, the shovel gripped in both hands. She'd spent her whole life avoiding conflict, accepting mistreatment, running from danger. But these men were coming for her daughter, and some maternal instinct deeper than fear or common sense wouldn't let her hide anymore. The first man raised his weapon when he saw her, but Maya swung the shovel with desperate strength, connecting with his wrist and sending the gun flying. His shocked expression almost would have been funny if her life didn't depend on the element of surprise. The second man grabbed her from behind, but Maya drove her elbow back into his solar plexus exactly like Dante had shown her during their self-defense sessions she'd thought were just bonding time. He released her with a wheeze, and she spun away, the shovel connecting with his knee with a sickening crack. The third man was smarter, keeping his distance while he aimed his weapon. Enough! Where's the kid? Not here, Maya lied, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. I sent her with the security team through the tunnel. You're too late. Then you're useless to us. The gunshot echoed across the estate grounds, but the pain Maya expected never came. The third man collapsed, a red stain spreading across his chest. Behind him stood Dante, his weapon still raised, his face a mask of cold fury. Touch her again, Dante said conversationally, addressing the two men Maya had wounded, and I'll make sure your deaths take days instead of seconds. More gunfire erupted from the direction of the villa, Dante's reinforcements engaging Sartore's assault team. Within minutes, the estate that had been under siege was secure again, Dante's overwhelming response crushing the attack with brutal efficiency. Lily emerged from the closet and ran to Maya, who scooped her up despite her shaking legs. Dante crossed to them, his hands checking Maya for injuries with gentle urgency. You were supposed to run, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Get to safety, not fight armed men with garden tools. They were coming for Lily, Maya replied simply. I couldn't let them reach her. Something shifted in Dante's expression, admiration and fear, and something deeper that he'd been too careful to name until now. You could have been killed. So could you, every single day. Welcome to loving someone in your world, Dante. The word hung between them, finally spoken aloud. Love. What had started as obligation and evolved through proximity had become something neither could deny anymore. I need to end this, Dante said quietly, his arms still wrapped around both Maya and Lily. Permanently. No more threats, no more attacks. The Sartores made their move and failed. Now I make mine. What does that mean? Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew. It means war, Dante replied, his voice carrying the weight of terrible decisions. The commission fractured when Sartori revealed his betrayal. Half the families will side with him out of opportunism or fear. The other half will back my retaliation. New York is about to become a battlefield. Maya pulled back to look at him directly. And us? Where do we fit in your war? Somewhere safe, far from New York until the dust settles. I have a property in Italy outside Florence. You and Lily will go there tonight with enough security to protect a small country. While you stay here and fight, Maya stated, not a question. While I do what's necessary to secure our future, Dante corrected. I won't let the Sartores or anyone else threaten what we're building, Maya. But I also won't risk you and Lily in the crossfire. Back at the villa, or what remained of it after the assault, Carmela had already begun packing essentials while security teams swept for secondary threats. The damage was extensive, but not catastrophic. Like Dante himself, the villa would survive, scarred but standing. That evening, as Maya prepared for their emergency flight to Italy, she found Dante in his study, surrounded by maps and dossiers, planning his response with the cold calculation that had made him one of New York's most feared men. "Come with us," she said from the doorway. "Leave New York to the Sartores and the rest of them. We could build something new in Italy, away from all this." Dante looked up from his planning, temptation and duty warring in his expression. "You know I can't. If I run, I'm seen as weak. Every enemy I've made will come for us, follow us to Italy or anywhere else we hide. The only way to guarantee your safety is to eliminate the threat here and now." "By starting a war that could get you killed," Maya argued, crossing to his desk. "Dante, I've already lost one person I love to their own stupidity. I won't lose another to pride or obligation." "This isn't pride," Dante replied, his voice gentle but firm. "This is survival. The Sartores won't stop until I'm dead or driven out. If I back down, 10 other families will see weakness and move against us. The only language my world respects is strength, and right now I need to speak it fluently." Maya understood the logic even as she hated it. In Dante's world, showing mercy was painted as weakness, and weakness invited annihilation. He was trapped by the same codes and traditions that had gotten his brother killed. "Then I'm staying too," Maya declared. "If you're fighting for our future, I should be here to see it." "Absolutely not. You don't get to make that decision alone anymore," Maya interrupted, her voice firm. "We're partners, Dante. You said you wanted to build something different, something better. That starts with treating me like an equal instead of another asset to protect." Dante stared at her, clearly torn between his protective instincts and his respect for her autonomy. Finally, he nodded slowly. "You stay in a secure location with Lily. Armed guards, reinforced safe room, the works. And at the first sign things are going badly, you get on that plane to Italy, non-negotiable." "Agreed," Maya said, relief flooding through her. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The war for New York's underworld unfolded over the next 2 weeks with calculated brutality. Dante moved against the Sartoris with surgical precision, dismantling their operations piece by piece, while building alliances with the families who'd stayed loyal to the Commission's original structure. Maya watched from their secure apartment in Manhattan, a penthouse in one of Dante's legitimate properties, protected by security that made the villa look understaffed. She'd insisted on being close enough to receive real-time updates, to know immediately if something happened to Dante rather than learning about it hours later from sanitized reports. Lily adapted to their new routine with the resilience of childhood, treating their secure penthouse like an adventure rather than a gilded cage. But Maya saw the way her daughter watched the news, understanding more than any 6-year-old should about violence and territory and the cost of loving someone in Dante's world. "Is Mr. Dante going to die like my real father almost made happen?" Lily asked one evening, her dark eyes too old for her young face. Maya's heart cracked at the question. "I don't know, baby, but he's very smart and very strong, and he has good people protecting him." "I don't want him to die," Lily whispered. "He makes you smile the way you used to before Daddy left. And he taught me about music and languages and said I was special instead of weird." "You are special," Maya said fiercely, pulling Lily close. "And Mr. Dante knows that. He's fighting so hard because he wants to keep us safe, because he loves us." "Does he? Love us, I mean. Did he say that?" Maya thought about stolen moments between crisis points, Dante's hand finding hers under the dinner table, the way he'd kiss her forehead before leaving for dangerous meetings, the fierce protectiveness in his eyes whenever he looked at Lily. "Yes," she said. "Maybe not in those exact words yet, but yes, he does." The decisive moment came on a cold November evening. Dante had arranged a meeting with Vincent Sartore at Neutral Territory, a warehouse owned by one of the few remaining neutral families. The terms were simple: surrender or total war with no rules and no mercy. Maya waited in the penthouse, her phone clutched in white-knuckled hands, while Carmela distracted Lily with elaborate pasta making in the kitchen. Every minute felt like an hour. Every notification made her jump. When Dante finally called, his voice was rough with exhaustion. "It's over. Sartore's dead. His organization is surrendering to commission oversight. The families are falling in line." Relief and horror warred in Maya's chest. "You killed him?" "I did what was necessary," Dante replied, not apologizing but not glorifying it either. "He made a play for power and lost. That's how this world works, Maya. I wish I could change it overnight, but transformation takes time." "Are you hurt?" "Nothing serious. I'm coming home. To you and Lily. To our home." The words settled warm in Maya's chest. Home. Not his home or her temporary sanctuary, but theirs. Together. When Dante arrived an hour later, Maya opened the door to find him still in his blood-spattered suit, his face haggard with exhaustion and the weight of everything he'd done. She pulled him inside without a word, leading him to the master bathroom where she helped him out of his ruined clothes. "I'm sorry you have to see this," Dante said quietly as Maya cleaned blood from his hands that wasn't his own. "This side of who I am." "I see all of you," Maya replied, her hands steady despite the trembling in her chest. "The man who kills to protect his family, and the man who teaches my daughter to play chess. The crime boss, and the grandson who planted olive trees in memory of Sicily. I see all of it, Dante, and I choose to stay anyway." His arms wrapped around her with desperate strength, his face buried in her hair. "I love you," he said, the words finally emerging after weeks of dancing around them. "God help me, Maya. I love you and Lily more than I've ever loved anything. You've given me something to build toward instead of just protect. A reason to change my world instead of just surviving in it." Maya tilted her face up to kiss him, tasting salt from tears she hadn't realized she'd shed. "I love you too, even though you're dangerous and your world is insane and I should run as far from you as possible. I love you anyway." They made love that night with an intensity born from survival and choice, from the knowledge that they'd both faced death and chosen each other anyway. When it was over, they lay tangled together, Dante's fingers tracing gentle patterns on Maya's shoulder. "Marry me," he said into the quiet darkness. "Not because you need protection, or because Lily needs a father, but because I need you both. Because I want to build something legitimate and lasting with you by my side." Maya propped herself up to look at him, seeing vulnerability in his dark eyes. "Your world is changing," Dante interrupted. "Has to change. Sartor's war showed the Commission that the old ways lead only to destruction. We're restructuring, legitimizing, building for a future where my children won't have to choose between family loyalty and the law. It'll take years, but I'm committed, Maya. To you, to Lily, to becoming someone worthy of the faith you've placed in me." "Yes," Maya whispered, the word both terrifying and liberating. "Yes, I'll marry you. We'll build something new together." 6 months later, Maya stood in the villa's rebuilt garden wearing a simple white dress, watching Lily scatter rose petals along a path between chairs filled with an unlikely congregation. Dante's family sat alongside people from Maya's old life, co-workers from the cafe, neighbors from her Brooklyn building who'd survived the fire James had indirectly caused. Carmela dabbed tears from her eyes. Marco stood as Dante's best man, his shoulder fully healed from the bullet he'd taken protecting Maya and Lily. And in the front row sat Sophia, Dante's niece, who'd begun speaking again after months of therapy. Her first words in over a year had been to ask Lily to teach her French. The ceremony was brief, officiated by a judge whose legitimacy wasn't in question despite his connections to the commission's legitimate restructuring. When Dante slipped the ring on Maya's finger, his hands were steady, his eyes bright with emotions he no longer bothered to hide. "I vow to protect you," he said, the traditional words taking on deeper meaning in his voice. "Not just from physical danger, but from the darkness of my world, to build something worthy of the trust you've given me, to be the man your daughter already believes I can be." Maya's vows were simpler. "I vow to stand beside you through transformation and challenge, to remind you who you are when the world demands you be what you were, to choose you every day, even when it's hard." The reception flowed with music and laughter, old wounds beginning to heal in the warmth of genuine celebration. Maya watched Dante dance with Lily, her daughter's delighted giggles echoing through the garden as he spun her in elaborate circles. "You did good," Carmela said, appearing beside Maya with champagne. "That man was carved from stone before you and Piccola arrived. Now look at him, smiling, laughing, remembering what it means to be human." "He did that himself," Maya replied. "I just showed him it was possible." As the sun set over the estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Dante found Maya on the terrace overlooking gardens that had witnessed so much violence and transformation. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "No regrets?" he asked softly. Maya thought about everything they'd survived: attempted poisonings, mob wars, betrayals, and violence that should have destroyed them. She thought about Lily teaching Sophia to speak again through the universal language of music and patience. She thought about Dante's transformation from feared crime boss to a man fighting to legitimize his family's empire, one difficult decision at a time. "None," she said honestly. "This isn't the life I imagined, but it's the one I choose. Every single day, I choose you, choose us, choose this beautiful, complicated, dangerous thing we're building together." "We're going to make it work," Dante promised. "The legitimate businesses are already outsourcing the old operations. In 5 years, maybe less, we'll be completely clean. Our children will inherit something to be proud of instead of ashamed of." "Our children?" Maya asked, turning in his arms to see his face. Dante's smile was soft and hopeful. "If you want them. A house full of kids who learn languages from Lily, and music from me, and courage from you. A family built on choice instead of obligation." Maya kissed him as the last light faded from the sky, sealing a promise that had started in a Brooklyn cafe and had somehow survived everything their complicated worlds could throw at them. Behind them, Lily's laughter mingled with Sophia's newly rediscovered voice. Two children playing in gardens that represented both the violence of the past and the hope of the future. The path from that morning in Cornerstone Cafe to this terrace in Westchester had been anything but straight. Maya had lost her old life, confronted betrayals she'd never imagined, and entered a world that should have destroyed her. But she'd also found love in the least likely place, discovered strength she hadn't known she possessed, and helped a dangerous man remember his humanity. Some stories didn't follow predictable patterns. Some families were forged in crisis rather than born in peace. And sometimes, just sometimes, the most terrifying choice led to the most beautiful destination. "Come on," Maya said, taking Dante's hand and pulling him back toward the celebration. "Our daughter is teaching your security team to dance. You should probably supervise before Marco attempts the tango." Dante's laugh was warm and genuine as they rejoined their unlikely family. Criminals and civilians, old world and new, all gathered under olive trees planted by a man who'd dreamed of recreating Sicily in America. His grandson was now building something different, something better, with a waitress from Brooklyn and her extraordinary daughter who'd saved his life with 3 whispered words. The future remained uncertain, transformation incomplete, dangers still lurking at the edges of legitimacy. But in that moment, surrounded by family both chosen and inherited, Maya and Dante had everything that mattered: each other, Lily's bright future, and the courage to keep building something new from the ashes of what came before. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.